Run by Dawnaura Weebly, Part 5. Our clunky boots clanged against the grated floors of the halls as we trudged our way back to Pod 2. "Where do you think you're going?" a female voice said out of the blue. A baton held out firmly blocked our path. My eyes scanned the baton and followed it to the person attached. It was a rather short woman. She had long brown hair, a thin face, and frigid eyes. "We're just headed back to our pod, Watcher," Jay said back coolly, with his arm extended in front of me protectively. The female Watcher took notice, smirked slyly, and turned her attention to me. "Who's this?" The Watcher moved in slowly until she was finally standing directly in front of me. Jay's fists started to ball up, but he dared not move. She stared me up and down with pure disgust planted on her face. With no warning, she suddenly swung her baton toward my head. I closed my eyes and tightened my muscles in preparation for impact. But she stopped, only a mere centimeters away from causing injury. I jumped. Jay flinched too, but breathed a sigh of relief once he realized she hadn't made contact. The woman laughed maniacally at our response. Jay kept his composure, but I could see his jaws clench in fury. "That's our new pod mate, Z-24, Watcher," he managed to growl from between his grinding teeth. "Oh, the lazy one. She was in a coma for nearly a week, right? I figured she was a goner. Lucky her, I suppose." The Watcher sneered. I was surprised. I'd only realized then that I'd been out for that long. Perhaps this was how Jay came to know everything so well. He had nearly a week to figure out the routine and meet new people. "Is there a problem here, Allison?" As if from nowhere, the large and scar-faced man whom I'd met upon my waking appeared. He stepped intimidatingly between us and the female Watcher. He looked down at her from his massive height. The female Watcher, apparently named Allison, glared at him with pure hatred. Jay breathed a sigh of relief. I was just asking why these two, from your group, if I may add, were wandering around the sector." "They had my permission," the large man said firmly, his arms crossed in annoyance. Allison gave us all a skeptical look. "Really? And why is that, then?" she questioned him, fully expecting him to fumble. "Why is my group any of your concern?" he answered her coldly. "You know, I'd hate to have to file a report of suspicious activity and violation of Watcher's protocols. You know what happened last time you violated the rules," Allison said back with a slithering coolness. I could tell whatever she was mentioning hit the man hard, as he somewhat flinched at the coded reminder. "They're serving recompense for service violations. They've been given extra tasks to complete in the pod as punishment." He said it so convincingly I questioned whether it was true myself. Allison looked again at all of us, her face still showered with doubt. "Fine," she finally responded. But know that I have my eye on you." She pointed her baton at all of us, then finally left us to ourselves. "Thanks, Gramps." Jay exhaled his tensions once she was no longer within earshot. He placed a hand over his beating chest. "Go," the Watcher named Gramps said back to Jay. He didn't even bother to turn and look at us. "Next time, Jay, be more careful where you wander." The man seemed angry. Jay looked down shamefully. "Sorry, Gramps, Jay began, but was cut short. "Go," Gramps said more sternly, declaring he was in no mood for any excuses or apologies. Jay turned and looked at me with pitiful eyes. "Come on, Z," he said. I nodded sympathetically, and we tracked, with haste, back to the pod. When we finally reached the pod, I took a seat on a shabby cot mattress I had once laid in. Jay grabbed a rusty metal stool nearby and pulled it close to take a seat. "Who was that?" I asked. "Which one?" Jay replied. "The snake or Gramps?" "The snake," I replied with a look of unbelief on my face. Why was she so hateful? "Allison?" "Yeah, she's like that to everyone." His face began to glow a furious shade of red as he thought back on what just happened. "But why?" I asked. "I don't know. She's always trying to tell everyone what to do. I guess she thinks that if she tattles on enough people that she'll get in the good graces of someone with more important selected services, and maybe they'll be able to pull some strings and get her out of the filthy pit. It's a stupid idea. Once you're in the pits, you don't ever leave. So I don't know what she's thinking. She's here for life, just like the rest of us. You'd think she'd realize that. She's cruel, but I never really took her for dumb. Maybe she just enjoys feeling important, and making other people feel like dirt makes her feel good about herself. It's hard to say. Regardless of the reason, you want to steer clear of her and her group. They're nothing but trouble." "I can tell," I said back. "So what about Gramps? What's his story?" "Oh, Gramps? He's our watcher. He's a good guy. I know he looks scary, but we're lucky to have him. He looks out for us. He's not your typical watcher," Jay replied. "He was the man who brought me to you when I woke up. I didn't realize I was asleep for so long," I said. "Yeah, you were out for a few days. The gleaning process nearly killed you. Luckily, you'd been assigned to this group. Gramps nursed you back to health. If you'd been assigned to any other pod, I doubt you would have made it. Most of the watchers would have likely preferred that you died, so they'd have a healthier servant to replace you." "Seriously?" I said in disbelief. "Yeah," Jay replied. "They don't care about anything but production and numbers around here. A sick servant puts the group's production numbers back. Low numbers mean fewer essentials for the group." But isn't everyone offered the same in the main, no matter what sector you're from or what service you provide?" I asked him, puzzled. "I told you before, Z. The way the main operates is nothing like they tell us. But now isn't a good time to talk about it. I promise I'll explain everything to you soon, but talking about things like that, even in the pod, are dangerous." "Okay," I replied. "I understand." "The others will be back for lights out soon. I hope you don't mind, but I'm kind of tired. You should probably get some rest too. My cot's just over there." Jay pointed to one of the cots across the room. "If you need anything, just wake me, all right?" "All right," I nodded. I waited for Jay to settle into his cot before I finally did the same. Although I hadn't actually performed any services that day, the mental and emotional toil of the day took its toll on my physical being, and I quickly fell into a deep, exhaustive sleep. Later that night, I was awakened by a light nudging. I opened my eyes and I was face to face with Bells, her finger pressed firmly to her lips. Still slightly hungover from my sleep, I looked around to see what was going on, but no one else was in the room except Gramps, who was standing guard at the pod door. "Come on, darlin'," Bells whispered low. "Follow me, Sweet Pea. The boys are waiting on us." Although confused, I still rose from the bed and waited for Bells to lead the way. She scurried down a familiar path, and I soon realized exactly where we were going, the secret underground room. We hurried through the routine lever pulls and ladder climbs until we finally reached our destination. "There you are," AR said in a sigh of relief to VTech, who was standing rather calmly just next to him. "What took you so long?" Dickie said angrily at Bells. "We thought you two got caught." "Don't you even think assassin me, Dickie." Bells placed one hand on her hip and wagged her finger at him wildly. "I think you already owe Z an apology for running your gums earlier, right?" Dickie looked down shamefully, and the rest of the boys looked around the room to avoid Belle's wrath. "We talked about this, Dickie. You owe Z an apology. Now get on with it and apologize as you promised." Bells crossed her arms and tapped her foot impatiently. "Fine. I apologize." Dickie said it so softly it was barely registerable. "What was that, Dickie? I don't think she heard that." Bells cupped her hand over her ear with impatient sarcasm. Dickie took a deep breath as the rest of the boys snickered. "I said," he spoke louder this time and with more sincerity, I'm sorry, Z. I shouldn't have lost my temper like that. I apologize. That's better. Bells smiled successfully and cheerily rested her hands on her hips with a satisfying victory. I forgive you, I replied shyly. Okay, now that that's over with, Dickie said, let's get this meeting going. Dickie and everyone in the room looked at me with a proud smile as he continued. Welcome to the Remnant, Z. We're happy you could finally join us.